The siege of Osaka Castle was the largest military event in which Musashi had taken part. Thousands upon thousands of warriors had met their end in the fighting. Their lifeless bodies now lay scattered on the blood-soaked fields, piled up waist-deep in the half-filled moats of Osaka Castle. Many of them had been younger than Musashi, yet many had been older, with far more experience on the field of battle. One of the older warriors among Katsunari's men to have lost his life was Nakagawa Shimanosuke. Musashi had seen him fall when they stormed the castle's southern gate. Shimanosuke had brought along 3 sons, the 2 eldest of whom had taken part in the siege. They were old enough to fight for themselves, yet the youngest, an 11-year-old by the name of Mikinosuke, needed a guardian. It was Musashi's fatherly instincts that led him to take the boy under his care. Early in June 1615, he set out with his newfound son Mikinosuke along the Sanyodo, toward the castle town of Himeji. His own father having passed away, Musashi felt free to go where he pleased. And having been raised in the province of Harima, where his stepmother still resided, it was there that he decided to turn his footsteps on that warm spring day. For 2 years Musashi remained at Hirofuku, looking after his aging stepmother and providing for the young Mikinosuke. Each day Musashi spent many hours together with his adopted son, priming him in the arts and skills he himself had learned as a boy. Only now, as he was raising his adopted son, did Musashi begin to see how the changes that had upset his youth had been a blessing in disguise. Then, in August 1617, unexpected news reached the village of Hirofuku. Ikeda Mitsumasa, the current lord of Himeji Castle, was going to move. The new lord of Himeji Castle was to be Honda Tadamasa, and it was in Tadamasa's appointment that Musashi saw a future for his adopted son. During the storming of Osaka Castle, Lord Tadamasa had been in command of the 2nd Eastern Phalanx, just behind the troops of Mizuno Katsunari. He had seen Musashi in action as they stormed the Sakura Mon, and he agreed to make Mikinosuke a page to his son Tadatoki. It was on Tadamasa's recommendation too that Musashi was hired by the neighboring daimyo Ogasawara Tadazane. Like Tadamasa, Tadazane had been newly appointed and had just begun on the construction of Akashi Castle, the new headquarters of the Akashi domain. Work was begun early in 1619 and carried out on a grand scale. Thousands of laborers put to work on its construction. A small army of architects, designers and military specialists were put in charge managing the huge undertaking. Musashi was appointed as an extraordinary advisor to the Zoe Bugyo, the magistrate of construction in charge of the project, helping with the strategic layout of the castle town, the construction of the castle walls, as well as the harbor's defenses. He was also put in charge of the castle gardens, and oversaw the construction of a tea house, miniature mountains, and a miniature lake. Equally exacting in his approach to landscape gardening as to the martial arts, Musashi laid out the garden with meticulous eye for detail, attending to every tree, every shrub, and every stone. Musashi's years in Akashi were the happiest in his life, advising the Zoe Bugyo, helping the young Lord Tadazane with the layout of his gardens, and instructing his retainers in the art of fighting with 2 swords. They were made all the more enjoyable as he saw how back in Himeji, his adopted son Mikinosuke continued to enjoy the favor of Tadamasa's heir and designated successor. Then, wholly unexpectedly, Disaster struck in the spring of 1626, when Lord Tadatoki was taken ill with tuberculosis, an illness for which his physicians had no cure. By the middle of May, Tadatoki's health had deteriorated to such an extent that he was unable to walk and forced to keep to his quarters in Himeji Castle. For several more weeks he clung to life, nursed by his devoted wife Senhime, until on the last day of July he passed away. His remains were buried on the grounds of the Engyo temple. Tadatoki was only 30 when he passed away, but Musashi knew the fate that lay in store for Mikunosuke. 7 days after Tadatoki's death, Mikunosuke and his retainer made their way to the Engyo temple. There, in the presence of a small group of notables led by Honda Tadamasa, they made ready for the moment Mikunosuke would let his upper garment slip to his waist, wrap the blade of his tanto in a piece of white paper, and plunge it into his lower abdomen. Mikunosuke's death left a deep emotional scar in the now 42-year-old swordsman. 11 years of his life Musashi had given to the kind youth, rescuing him from an uncertain future. With the tragic death of his lordship, Musashi had not only lost an able and eager pupil, but also a young man he had come to consider a son of his own blood. For months, Musashi remained unapproachable to his deshi, preferring solitude as he tried to come to terms with the loss of his first and only son. It was a year after Mikunosuke's death that Musashi adopted a second son. The boy, whose name was Iori, was born as the second son of Tawara Hisamitsu, a samurai in the service of Besho Nagaharu, the lord of Miki Castle. In 1578, Toyotomi Hideyoshi had laid siege to Miki Castle. Having held out for a year and 10 months, Nagaharu and his family agreed to commit seppuku on the condition that those who would serve them would be spared. Reduced to the life of a ronin, Tawara Hisamitsu took up farming near Yoneda, where he had 2 children, the second of whom was Iori. On Hisamitsu's death, Iori had become an orphan, living from the produce of his family's small plot of land. With Musashi's help, Iori entered the service of Lord Ogasawara Tadazane. Iori eventually climbed to the rank of senior retainer, and it would be due to his second son that Musashi eventually decided to move back to the southern island of Kyushu. Musashi would spend the last 20 years of his life in Kyushu, and it was during this period, in the twilight of his life, on the island where he had first seen action almost half a century ago, that Musashi was to write a work that would make him immortal.
From the passion longing, and no sense of direction, on the road ahead, on the road that's paved with